You could say I'm the strongest underworld king in this land, and today is the day I get out of prison. I haven't even stepped outside yet, and already a crowd is waiting for me out there. A young woman, flushed red from the heat, couldn't help but complain. Grandfather, our Qin family is one of the top elite clans in the capital. What's so special about this Qin family criminal that we had to drive all this way just to wait for him? The old man beside her, dressed in traditional attire, flew into a rage at her words. Quiet, do you think you're qualified to speak the Underworld King's name so casually? Anyone who walks out of this prison is powerful enough to shake the four corners of the earth. And even they have to bow their heads and address him as Lord when they meet him. Do you know why? The girl, though clearly frightened, still pushed back. So what? Is he really stronger than our heavenly kings, the war gods? The old man's face filled with contempt. The heavenly kings are sworn to guard the borders of the great Xia nation. Any one of them alone can strike terror into an enemy army. But what you don't know is this. Of the 10 heavenly kings, 8 of them are the Underworld King's own students. Hearing this, the girl's face drained of color. Someone who could stand unrivaled in the world at such a young age, that simply wasn't something an ordinary person could achieve. Struck by this thought, she turned back toward the prison with something close to reverence, as if gazing upon a deity. Just then, a red Ferrari and 3 Hummers pulled up outside the prison gates, and a woman with delicate, striking features stepped out. This was Shen Rushwang, the treasured daughter of the wealthy Shen family from Mo City, and also one of the heavenly kings herself, the closed-door disciple of the renowned physician Ji Hong, known throughout the southern territories as the finest healer alive. Shen Rushwang removed her sunglasses and stared coldly at the prison gate. Before long, the gate creaked open, and a young man sauntered out, hands in his pockets. Shen Rushwang frowned slightly, pulled out a photo to check it, then glanced over my rather careless appearance and couldn't help curling her lip. You're Qin Jiang, released today, correct? She crossed her arms, looking down at me with an air of clear superiority. I frowned a little and said, somewhat stiffly, "You're here for me?" Shen Rushwang tossed the photo back to one of her bodyguards, pulled out a marriage contract, and said flatly, "Before your mother was cast out of the Qin family, she came to my family and arranged this engagement. I'm here to tell you I'm calling it off. I hope you won't come bothering our Shen family after you're released." Hearing this, I was visibly caught off guard. My mother had indeed mentioned, long ago, that the Shen family of Mo City owed her an enormous debt of gratitude, that they'd promised their daughter to me one day, and that if I ever ran into trouble, I could turn to the Shen family for help. But when my mother died after being framed, the Shen family was nowhere to be found. When I was wrongfully imprisoned, the Shen family didn't lift a finger. And now, the moment I'm released, their daughter shows up in a rush to break off the engagement. My expression darkened. Shen Rushwang looked at me with a mix of coldness and faint pity. The gap between us would only make you feel inferior. Even if you married me, you'd spend your whole life living in my shadow. That said, if you ever can't afford to eat, feel free to call me. Also, I'd suggest you go apologize to Wang Yanjun once you're out. Show some sincerity, and maybe there's still a chance the Qin family will take you back. With that, she held out a business card. When I didn't take it right away, she simply dropped it on the ground, picked up the marriage contract, tore it to shreds on the spot, threw it down, and climbed back into her car, driving off without a backward glance. Watching her disappear into the distance, my eyes narrowed sharply, a cold glint flashing in their dark depths. That Qin family, the one that had driven my mother to her death from grief, I would return to them eventually. And when I did, all that awaited them was blood debt repaid in full, and endless darkness. Meanwhile, the old man waiting nearby watched the whole scene unfold and shook his head. We ancient clans, worth trillions, would practically shove our own granddaughters into the Underworld King's bed given half the chance. And that Shen girl, blind to what stood right in front of her, tore up a golden opportunity with her own hands. What a joke. The old man stepped closer, about to say something, when my phone rang. A message from Su Zheng appeared on the screen. "Zhao Jiang, you're getting out today, right? Come straight to me in Jiangbei once you land. Let's talk about you and Weiwei's marriage." I sighed at the message. Su Zheng was the man who'd helped my mother and me back in Jiangbei. He'd once promised that once I came of age, he'd have his daughter Su Tianwei marry me, and it had been my mother's unfulfilled wish as well. I let out a breath and texted back, "Okay," then looked up at the old man and young woman, both now drenched in sweat from the heat, and waved a hand. "Whatever business you have, let's talk once I've settled somewhere." Not long after, having just gotten off the plane, my expression darkened as I spotted Shen Rushwang seated on a lounge sofa in the terminal. She noticed me too and froze for a second, a flicker of disdain crossing her eyes. "Qin Jiang, why bother? Even if you chase me to the ends of the earth, I'm still not going to marry you." She shook her head with a faint sigh. "My young lady already broke off the engagement, and you still have the nerve to follow her here. Is this really worth it? Plenty of men try to reach above their station, but I've never seen someone as shameless as you." This came from Shen Rushwang's secretary, Cheng Yueting, who'd walked over, her pretty face carrying a distinct chill. I gave a cold glance. "You're overthinking this. I just happened to be passing through." Cheng Yueting responded with undisguised contempt. "Just happened to be passing through? More like you heard my young lady is beautiful and wealthy and figured you'd stage a chance encounter, play the loyal dog and win her over him. A man who's done time in prison, no matter how hard you try, you'll never be worthy of her." Shen Rushwang's face darkened as well, her eyes filled with frost. "This man is honestly ridiculous, caught sneaking after us and still talking back. Truly repulsive." I let out a cold laugh and didn't bother even glancing at either of them again. I pulled out a key card and waited for my ride after making a call. Zhao Wudi, the king of Jiangbei serving with the Cheetah unit, had already notified Jiangbei's richest man to come pick me up once he heard I was headed there. And the card in my hand was the key to the most expensive villa in Jiangbei. Seeing that I hadn't left and had shamelessly sat down nearby, Shen Rushwang's expression darkened further, and she was about to get up and leave when suddenly an elderly woman collapsed to the ground nearby. A crowd gathered around her at once, and a voice rang out from within it. "I'm a doctor, everyone move aside." A bespectacled man pushed through, checked her pulse for a moment, then sighed and shook his head. "Her heart is failing. I'm afraid there's nothing we can do." The moment he said it, a little girl in the crowd burst into tears. Watching this, I couldn't help but frown. The old woman's lips had gone pale, fine beads of sweat covered her forehead, and her joints were seizing, clear signs of severe myocarditis triggering cardiac arrest. An ordinary doctor genuinely had no way to treat this. But for me, all it would take was channeling true qi into 3 acupoints, Guanyuan, Juk, and Tiantu. And within 2 minutes her heart would resume beating on its own, permanently, no hospital visit needed afterward. Modern doctors put too much stock in Western medicine these days. Traditional medicine is, in truth, far more formidable. A faint, wry smile crossed my face as I crouched down beside the old woman and pressed a few points along her body. All that was left now was to wait 2 minutes for her to wake. Cheng Yueting, watching this, flushed with anger. "My lady, look at what he's doing, an absolute pervert. The old woman's practically dying and he's over there smiling, groping at her body like that. There's clearly something wrong with him mentally." Shen Rushwang's brows knit tightly, and just as I stood up, she strode over quickly. "I'll handle this." Cheng Yueting followed right behind her, shoving me roughly aside and glaring. "Everyone step back. My young lady can actually treat her." Shen Rushwang then pulled out several silver needles from her pocket and began inserting them at 13 acupoints, including Guanyuan, Juk, and Tiantu. I stood off to the side, frowning slightly. I'd already administered treatment, and the old woman would wake in 2 minutes regardless. But since Shen Rushwang's needle placements weren't wrong and wouldn't harm the old woman, I said nothing. Sure enough, 2 minutes later, the old woman's eyes fluttered open. "She's awake! Incredible!" The lobby erupted in astonished murmurs, and the crowd turned admiring glances toward Shen Rushwang. She herself blinked in surprise. She'd only completed half the treatment, without much confidence in the outcome, so why had the old woman woken so quickly? Had her skills improved that much? A flicker of smug pride crossed her eyes once the shock passed. Cheng Yueting, entirely unsurprised, introduced her proudly. "My young lady is Shen Rushwang, the inner circle disciple of the legendary physician Ji Hong. Of course, a case like this is nothing to her." That brief introduction landed in the crowd like a boulder into a pond, sending ripples of astonishment through the lobby. People swarmed around Shen Rushwang as if she were a celebrity, offering business cards, eager to make her acquaintance. Watching all this, I felt another jolt of surprise. Ji Hong, the so-called legendary physician, had once, along with several others, practically begged to become my student. I'd reluctantly given him a few pointers a handful of times. I never imagined Shen Rushwang was that old man's disciple. Shen Rushwang looked over at me, still standing there dumbfounded, and said coldly, "As you can see, we're simply not from the same world. I hope you'll stop chasing after this and let it go." Cheng Yueting, standing beside her, added with obvious pride, "You can't even earn 5,000 a month. How could you possibly be worthy of my young lady? She charges the wealthy starting at 500,000 just for a consultation. Go home and get some rest." I couldn't help but laugh at that. I looked at Shen Rushwang and said flatly, "I've actually read one of your medical papers. Mediocre stuff, honestly, nothing original in it. That old man Ji Hong clearly isn't much better at teaching manners than he is at teaching medicine. Next time I run into him, I'll have a word." The moment I finished speaking, the crowd around us erupted, hurling accusations that I had no idea what I was talking about, that I clearly didn't know my place, truly a new low in shamelessness. Shen Rushwang's expression turned icy. Speaking my master's name so casually really is unforgivable. But since I was the one who broke off the engagement first, I won't hold it against you this time. Go apologize to Wang Yanjun in Mo City and be sincere about it. Maybe he'll toss you a few coins out of pity, and you can scrape by for the rest of your life." With that, she swept out of the airport, surrounded by her bodyguards. I watched her retreating figure and let out a cold laugh. I'd go to Mo City, sure enough, but not yet. December 21st, Wang Yanjin's birthday, I'd make sure to bring him a proper gift. Tusk only brave enough to act tough once she's gone. Who's even trying to impress? The less capable a man is, the bigger his mouth. A passerby, noticing my dark expression, shot me a disdainful look and turned away, just as a beaming, round-faced man came rushing over. The moment the surrounding crowd got a good look at this man, they all but wanted to drop to their knees and beg my forgiveness. I stood there in the airport lobby, looking at the man in front of me. This was none other than Wu Tian, Jiangbei's richest man, come to pick me up personally. Wu Tian bowed with an ingratiating smile and eagerly took my bag, hoisting it onto his back like a servant. The crowd that had just been mocking me stood frozen, then flushed red and scattered to the side, terrified I might settle scores with them later. Wu Tian himself looked more than a little anxious. When he'd gotten the call from Zhao Wudi the day before, he'd immediately understood just how much weight I carried. And he'd gone all out preparing for this pickup, even tracking down old photos from my high school and donating 50 million to the school on the spot. And yet, despite all that effort, something had still slipped through the cracks, leaving me waiting at the airport for over half an hour. He was trembling with nerves now. I waved a hand and climbed into the waiting Rolls-Royce. The onlookers who'd been enjoying the show watched me leave, lingering fear on their faces, some of them wailing internally. A few had only just managed to build a connection with Wu Tian, and now that chance was gone for good. Not long after I arrived at the Su family estate, I pulled a scroll painting from my bag and knocked lightly on the door. It opened to reveal a sleepy-eyed young woman. "Yanyan, you're here too," I said with a warm smile. The girl named Zhou Hongyan was the daughter of Su Tianwei's aunt. I'd met her a few times before. She'd clearly just woken up. Seeing me, she blinked, then her pretty face fell. "Change your shoes," she muttered, yawning as she wandered back to her room. Just then, a burst of astonished exclamations and flattering praise drifted from the study. I could faintly make out phrases like Master Wang Ming and authentic peace. I raised an eyebrow, set the bag and scrolled down by the entrance and walked over quickly. Inside the study, several people were gathered around a painting, murmuring in admiration. The moment I stepped in, I froze. Wasn't that the discarded sketch I'd painted back in prison? A few days earlier, bored out of my mind behind bars, I doodled a handful of paintings, one of which was this piece, Cold Pines in a Secluded Ravine. I hadn't been particularly inspired at the time and had simply tossed it in the trash. Must have been a prison guard who fished it out while cleaning, figured it was a shame to waste, and sold it off. Realizing this, I couldn't help but laugh. "Ah, Zhao Jiang's here. You look more like your mother every day." Su Zheng, spotting me, clapped me on the shoulder with a warm smile and a nod. A cold snort sounded from nearby. That was Su Zheng's daughter, Su Tianwei, looking at me with open disdain and disgust, clearly unable to imagine what kind of miserable life awaited her spending the rest of it with someone like me. But her father was head of the household, and once he made a decision, no one could overturn it. Su Zheng's wife, Li Feng, standing nearby, wore an equally unhappy expression, thinking to herself that a man who'd accomplished nothing, worse, an ex-convict, had no business marrying her daughter. Her daughter was so accomplished, having become company president right out of university. The man she married should be someone at least on the level of Zhang Peng's family. Just then, Su Zheng gestured toward a square-jawed man standing nearby and said with a smile, "Zhao Jiang, come over here. This is Manager Liu Daqian from Tiansheng Construction. Just call him Manager Liu." I greeted him politely. Manager Liu gave a faint nod, his gaze drifting back to the painting. After studying it appreciatively for a moment, he remarked with feeling, "This painting captures Master Wang Ming's proud, unyielding spirit perfectly. Look at this pine tree. Despite the waterfall crashing and the mountain winds battering it, it stands proudly on the mountainside. You can see, even in just this brushwork, Master Wang Ming's indomitable spirit in the face of adversity." Manager Liu pointed to the pool beneath the waterfall and continued, "See this fish here. All the other fish are struggling upstream toward the waterfall, striving for that legendary leap through the Dragon Gate. But what's this one doing? Lounging lazily by the shore, taking its time. Miss Su, what do you think this expresses about Master Wang Ming's state of mind?" Su Tianwei, caught off guard by the question, thought for a moment before answering. "I think Master Wang Ming was using this fish to express a mindset of withdrawing from worldly competition." "I don't think so." Old Liu shook his head, looking rather pleased with himself. "A hidden dragon lying in wait, gathering strength before striking. This fish is actually conserving its energy by swishing its tail, building up power for its own leap through the Dragon Gate. That's the true meaning here." Su Tianwei laughed awkwardly and gave a thumbs up. "Manager Liu really is Master Wang Ming's biggest fan. Such a sharp analysis. I feel embarrassed by comparison." Hearing all this, I genuinely froze for a second. That pine tree had just been an idle brushstroke on paper, painted out of sheer boredom. And that fish had been a complete accident, a stray blot of ink I couldn't quite scrub off, so I dabbed a few strokes of red over it to cover the mess. What deep meaning was there to speak of? In fact, those two flaws were exactly why I'd been so dissatisfied with the painting that I'd thrown it straight in the trash. And now here they were, dissecting those very mistakes with elaborate, confident analysis. And worse, this painting in front of them was a forged copy, not even the original. I couldn't help shaking my head, a helpless smile tugging at my lips. What's that supposed to mean? Su Tianwei caught my expression and flashed with irritation. An ex-convict fresh out of prison, and instead of scurrying off to the living room to wait like you should, you're standing here shaking your head and smirking at a famous painting. How embarrassing. This piece isn't even worth that much anyway, and it's a forgery besides. Seeing how much Liu Daqian treasured the piece, I didn't want to deceive him, so I simply voiced my thoughts. The moment I finished speaking, Li Feng exploded. Do you even understand art? Do you even know who Master Wang Ming is? Wei spent over 3 million on this painting. How could it possibly be fake? You don't know the first thing about it, and you dare spout nonsense here. Get out to the living room now. Su Zheng frowned as well, forcing an awkward smile. Manager Liu, Zhao doesn't quite understand etiquette. Please don't take offense. Then, shooting me a pointed look, he added, Zhao, go have some tea in the living room for now. You can join Manager Liu for a few drinks later. I responded flatly, unbothered. This really is a forgery. Wei spent a lot of money on it. She should return it. I know she bought this painting to curry favor with Manager Liu. If I don't point it out now, and he takes it home only for a fellow connoisseur to spot the forgery at a glance later, Manager Liu will lose face in front of his peers, and he'll be furious. Su Tianwei glared at me angrily. Qin Jiang, are you done? I had a researcher from the Jiangbei Museum verify this painting when I bought it. Are you saying you know better than him? Don't think that because you've seen a few of Master Wang Ming's works, you can go around showing off everywhere. Facing her scolding, my expression hardened. I pointed at the seal stamped on the scroll. This seal is nearly identical to the one on the original, meaning whoever forged this has considerable skill. But look closely, and you'll notice the seal is far too smooth, with none of the texture that comes from carved stone. This is clearly a photographic reproduction of the seal. Liu Daqian's expression shifted sharply at this. He immediately grabbed a magnifying glass and leaned in for a closer look. A moment later, his face changed completely. He slammed the magnifying glass down on the table and said coldly, "This young man is right. The seal is a photographic reproduction, and the brushwork in certain sections is off too. This is definitely a forgery." The 3 members of the Su family froze on the spot at these words, and Su Tianwei especially looked utterly deflated. She bought the painting to give to Liu Daqian specifically to secure a business deal. And now not only was the deal in jeopardy, she'd managed to offend the manager on top of it. Sensing how bad things had gotten, Su Zheng rushed to smooth things over. Manager Liu, please don't be upset. Authentication is a tricky business. Even experts get fooled sometimes. Let me prepare some food and drinks, and we can sit down together. With that, he pulled Manager Liu off toward the living room. As Su Zheng had passed by me, he said quietly, "Go with Wei to the Civil Affairs office and get your marriage certificate sorted out now. I'll handle things here. Come back and join us for drinks with Manager Liu afterward." "Uncle Su, isn't this a bit sudden?" I said, rubbing my nose awkwardly. "I settled this with your mother 10 years ago. What's sudden about it?" Su Zheng said, already steering me and Su Tianwei out the door. Su Tianwei looked thoroughly displeased, but went along with me to the registration office anyway. Not long after, I found myself staring at the marriage certificate in my hand, feeling a bit dazed, so I was married now. In the photo, Su Tianwei's expression was ice cold, her face practically dragging to the floor. Beside me, she spoke up. "You're an ex-convict with a criminal record who can't even find a job, and I'm the president of Su Group. We are not from the same world, you understand that, right? We may be married now, but don't you dare get any ideas about sharing a room with me. The moment my father agrees, we're getting divorced." I didn't bother offering much of a response. We returned to the Su estate soon after. The moment the door opened, we found Manager Liu holding up a scroll, laughing heartily. "This piece, Misty Rain over Jiangnan, is a genuine work by Master Wang Ming. Chairman Su, I won't stay for dinner. Have 100 million ready. We'll sign the contract the day after tomorrow." I glanced into the room and noticed a new face in the living room, a man in an immaculate designer suit, all smiles. This was Zhang Peng, one of Su Tianwei's suitors. Su Zheng gripped Zhang Peng's hand tightly, his face full of gratitude. "Excellent, young Master Zhang, you really are a lifesaver. If you hadn't brought that painting, this whole deal would have fallen through. You've gone to real expense for us. I'll make sure to pay you back for the painting." Zhang Peng gave a faint, easy smile. "No need to be so formal, uncle. Weiwei's my friend, her problems are my problems. It's the least I could do. Hearing this, I frowned and glanced toward the entryway. The cold pines in a secluded ravine scroll I'd brought was gone. Su Tianwei rushed over to Zhang Peng excitedly. You bought a Master Wang Ming painting and gave it to Manager Liu. Weiwei, don't get too worked up, we're good friends. This is just what I should do. Zhang Peng said with a smile, then turned his gaze to me. And who's this? Li Dakin, who had just stepped out of the kitchen, caught the question and answered with a pointed, sour tone. Just some toad fresh out of prison, young Master Zhang, don't bother with him. Look at you spending so much just to help Weiwei, how thoughtful. Unlike some people who haven't shown up in years and don't bring so much as a fart with them. I ignored Li Dakin and gave Zhang Peng a level look instead. That painting was mine, a gift for Uncle Su. Since when did it become yours? The room fell into stunned silence at that. Li Dakin, hands on her hips, exploded. Qin Jiang, have you no shame? Do you even know your own worth? That painting is worth millions. You think you could afford something like that? You'll claim anything as your own, won't you? Why don't you go ahead and say the luxury estate on Wanju Mountain is yours too, while you're at it? Zhang Peng, rather than admitting anything, turned the moment into an opportunity to mock me. Auntie, I think Brother Qin probably felt bad about not bringing a gift, and to save face in front of the Su family, he's claiming the painting is his. I understand where he's coming from, but that painting definitely isn't his. He gestured toward the entryway with an earnest expression. I only brought 2 bottles of wine with me when I arrived. I definitely didn't bring any painting. That calculated false humility pushed Li Dakin's anger to its peak. Qin Jiang, my daughter already married you, and now you're trying to steal credit from young Master Zhang. Claiming something that's clearly his as your own. Aren't you ashamed? I'm embarrassed for you. With everyone around me staring with open contempt, I had no choice but to keep explaining. Auntie, I'm not joking. I set the painting down right at the entryway when I came in. If you don't believe me, ask Zhou Hongyan. She's the one who opened the door for me. Su Zheng nodded. That's fair enough. Yanyan's been asleep all day anyway. Might as well wake her and ask. A moment later, Zhou Hongyan appeared at the door, yawning. But when Li Dakin asked her whether she'd seen me bring in a painting, Zhou Hongyan blinked rapidly and said, with feigned seriousness, I didn't see any Master Wang Ming painting. At once, every eye in the room turned to me, waiting to see what else I could possibly say. Seeing how things stood, I stopped explaining altogether. I gave a cold laugh and said to Zhang Peng, I'd advise you to play nice, otherwise you won't even get the chance to kneel and beg for forgiveness. Su Zheng cut in loudly to stop things from escalating further. That's enough. This matter ends here and no one brings it up again. Now that the deal's secured, has the bank approved the loan yet? Su Tianwei let out a heavy sigh. The bank rejected the application. At this rate, I won't even hold on to my position as president. A sly glint flashed in Zhang Peng's eyes as he looked at me, his tone mocking. Brother, you can casually give away paintings worth millions. Surely a small matter like this should be nothing for someone with your kind of ability. Without even thinking, I answered, sure. It's nothing. Everyone stared at me in absolute shock, eyes practically bulging out of their heads. Li Dakin snapped immediately. Shut your mouth. Do you think the bank belongs to your family? No one's calling you mute for staying quiet, but say one more word and get out. Always showing off over nothing, useless piece of garbage. My expression darkened, a cold, blade-sharp glint flashing in my eyes. Are you finished? If it weren't to help ease Su Zheng's troubles, I wouldn't even want to set foot in this house. Everyone flinched at the sudden chill in my expression and didn't dare say another word. Seeing this, I simply picked up my things and walked out of the Su household.